This is my audience. So today I am going to be talking about the problem of overfishing in our oceans. You may be wondering, what is overfishing? Overfishing is when a fishing industry fishes too much of the same species at one time, or catches too many fish at one time. It can mean a lot of different things, but we'll get into that now. So it is defined by sharing the catch, preserving the fish as fishing that unsustainably depletes fishing stocks in unfished species or that damages the ocean. So this is really important to consider because that means even overfishing can damage the whole ocean. And that's something really important to keep in mind as climate change and everything that we face today is becoming a bigger and bigger problem. One of the most destructive fishing practices is bottom trawling. It's when they throw the net over the side of the boat and drag it along the ocean floor. And this results in it catching on coral reefs, it catching things it didn't mean to catch, and basically destroying the whole bottom of the ocean floor wherever they are fishing. So one of the results of overfishing is obviously the amount of fish that are caught and the depletion of fishing populations. But not only do fishing populations drop, but when there's overfishing, fishermen don't do well. Because if a population of fish is overfished and the population drops drastically, that means there's no more fish to fish, which means no jobs for people. And in Canada restricted fishermen and put all the responsibility on individual people to calculate how much they caught, so then they felt more responsible for what they were catching. And this resulted in the population wanting to grow and for fishermen to make more money because they were catching fish more sustainably and they're able to make more money because there is a steady flow of fish being caught and the population growing at the same time. We on the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, and California, have a problem with the rockfish population specifically, and the U.S. government hasn't done anything to fix or solve that problem yet. And that is a huge issue because the fishing industry for rockfish is dying, which means no jobs, and rockfish are part of the food chain, so if that is taken out, the food chain will collapse. Another example of overfishing is the Faroe Islands in Norway have a tradition where every now and then, like about once a year, they go out and herd a pod of pilot whales and dolphins into the shallow bay and kill them all with knives and hooks. So whales have no way of getting out because they're surrounded by boats and they're in a shallow bay, so they're suffocating while they're being slaughtered, and they are very communal creatures, so that means they're dying and watching their family members be killed, and it's just a whole mess. And they kill around 800 to 1,000 pilot whales and dolphins a year, and mammals only produce about one or two animals at a time, whereas fish can have like 500 baby fish because of eggs, and mammals don't have eggs, so their population takes longer to grow and recover from that issue. And not only are the populations being depleted by this like tradition, but also genetic material, so they could be killing like more female whales than male whales, which means less opportunities to reproduce, which means it even takes longer for them to recover. And also, if there's a disease that is genetic that certain mammals or whales have and they pass it along, the ones who were healthy died from that, that means that disease is going to be passing on to the other generations. So a lot of genetic material is being taken out of it. It's not a completely unsustainable practice, but it is cruel and it is something to think about for the future. So right now, the whole Atlantic halibut population was hunted to commercial extinction. And 90% of the large fish in the ocean are already gone. So that means only 10% of large fish are left, which is a huge problem because that means the fishing industry is being affected and the overall food chain is being affected because the big fish are the predators, which means they eat the small fish. And the small fish are growing in size, which throws off the whole ecosystem of the ocean. Bait catch is also another problem with overfishing. That comes along with bottom trawling, especially catching animals and things that didn't mean to catch. Dolphins, sharks, and sea turtles are the biggest bycatch animals around, and they can be hurt and they just get thrown back and they're not taken care of for their wounds, which means they are dying and their population also is being depleted by bait catch and they're not even trying to be caught. So there's a few things that need to be done. One, we need to protect oceans and certain areas of oceans. Just 1.6% of oceans are actually protected under the WWF. And that means about 90% of the actual oceans are open to fishing. And that could mean they can fish whatever they want. There's no specific regions that say you can fish here, but you can only fish these 3 species and you can't fish anything else. And Fiji actually had a large part of their overall ocean population controlled and protected, and it helped to revive the whole reef. And now it's okay for people to fish there occasionally. And this helps grow the fishing population, grow the fishing industry, help people get jobs. Also, another big problem is the amount of illegal fishing that is happening. 20% of all fish that are caught illegally. And about 50% of the fishing industry is illegal fishing. And that needs to be put to an end because they're not able to be tracked, which means no one knows how much they're catching at a time, no one knows what they're catching, and no one knows how they're catching it. So they could be using bottom trawling and wrecking complete ecosystems and reefs. So we all know the environment is a huge part of what God gave us to protect, and it's our job as Christians to make sure that we protect our environment while also providing for ourselves and our families and the economy and others. So we need to stop overfishing as soon as possible because it is damaging our whole entire ocean and ultimately the whole world, because that's basically the whole world is the ocean. Okay, thanks for listening.